Have you ever wondered how our earliest ancestors, living tens of thousands of years ago, managed to ensure the survival of their newborns in a world full of dangers, uncertainty, and constant threats? Imagine being in a cold cave, surrounded by predators, harsh climates, and a landscape that offered no mercy, yet holding in your arms a fragile life that depended entirely on your knowledge, instincts, and courage. This wasn't just about feeding or keeping the child warm. It was about interpreting the unseen forces of nature, understanding subtle signals from the environment, and passing on wisdom that could mean the difference between life and death. Every sound, every shadow, every unusual pattern in the sky could carry meaning, a silent message from the world that required careful attention and immediate action. Our ancestors didn't have modern medicine or advanced technology, but they had an acute awareness, a spiritual and observational intelligence that allowed them to decode these signals. Their survival depended on patterns, rituals, and an almost sacred understanding of timing and human behavior. Now think about this. The choices they made, sometimes seemingly small, were monumental. A wrong step, a neglected sign, or a misinterpreted signal could lead to tragedy. And yet, they persevered. They learned to listen to the whispers of the environment, to trust subtle instincts, and to act collectively to protect their youngest. What you are about to discover in this journey is not just history. It's the blueprint of human ingenuity, compassion, and the ancient strategies that shaped our survival. You might even find parallels with challenges we face today, where attention to detail, care, and understanding can transform outcomes in ways we rarely notice. Now, I want you to pause for a moment and reflect. Have you ever experienced a moment when subtle signs guided your decisions? Fica comigo até o final, because the lessons from these ancestral practices will challenge what you think you know about human life, survival, and the unseen connections that guide us. Before we dive deeper, make sure to leave a comment sharing your thoughts on how we interpret the unseen in our own lives. Hit the like button if this fascinates you, and check if you're already subscribed to continue uncovering the secrets of our past. The journey is only beginning, and what comes next will reveal just how intricate and astonishing these survival strategies really were. Stepping into the world of the Paleolithic era, the daily reality of our ancestors was a relentless challenge where every decision could dictate life or death. The landscape itself was unforgiving, with dense forests hiding predators, harsh winters that stripped warmth from even the fittest, and unpredictable storms that could sweep away the unprepared in an instant. For the earliest humans, survival was not just about hunting and gathering. It was a constant negotiation with nature, a delicate balance between risk and caution, instinct and observation. Newborns represented both the greatest hope and the most profound vulnerability in this environment. Every child depended on a network of protection, attentiveness, and knowledge passed down through generations. Parents had to decipher subtle signs from the environment. The behavior of animals could signal approaching danger, changes in the wind could indicate a storm, and even the positions of the sun and stars guided their actions in ways that might seem invisible to the modern eye. Resources were scarce, and the act of nourishing an infant involved not only physical sustenance, but an understanding of what the body required at each stage of growth. Beyond feeding, warmth, and shelter, our ancestors employed strategies to minimize risk. They positioned infants carefully within communal spaces, often close to caregivers or protected by natural barriers, ensuring constant vigilance. Social structures played a critical role as well. Extended families or small tribal groups shared responsibilities, creating a web of attentiveness that increased the chances of survival for the most fragile members. This cooperation was not born from convenience, but from necessity. Every member understood that the life of a newborn was intertwined with the continuity of the entire group. Over time, patterns emerged. practices that, while seemingly simple, were rooted in profound understanding of timing, environmental cues, and human behavior. These routines, passed orally and through demonstration, became a foundation of survival knowledge, a hidden curriculum where observation, patience, and responsiveness were valued above all. Infants who thrived were those whose caretakers could anticipate danger, who read the signs of the wild accurately, and who reacted swiftly to the unexpected. Every moment of awareness, every small act of protection contributed to the continuation of life, creating an intricate tapestry of human ingenuity. As we trace the lives of these early communities, it becomes clear that survival was never passive. It was an active engagement with a world both beautiful and perilous. And this engagement was guided by lessons accumulated over generations, lessons that encoded the wisdom of countless lives and countless challenges, ensuring that even in the harshest conditions, the cycle of life could continue unbroken. Within these harsh landscapes, our ancestors developed rituals and practices that might seem mystical to us today, yet were rooted in observation, experience, and a profound understanding of life's fragility. Every gesture, every repeated action carried a significance that went beyond superstition. They were practical frameworks that ensured newborns had the highest chance of survival. Some rituals involved the careful timing of movements and the use of specific herbs or natural substances believed to protect and strengthen infants. Others relied on quiet, observation, noting how subtle changes in the environment, like the behavior of animals, the direction of the wind, or the sound of distant water, could provide warnings or guidance. These practices were not arbitrary. They were refined over generations through trial and error, with lessons passed down from elders to younger members of the tribe. Storytelling became a crucial medium for preserving and transmitting knowledge. Through narratives, symbolic actions, and careful demonstration, knowledge about safe sleeping places, protective postures, and the interpretation of signs in the natural world was embedded in daily life. The community collectively observed the impact of these practices, constantly adjusting and improving their methods. Spirituality and reverence for unseen forces also played a role, guiding decisions in ways that encouraged attentiveness and respect for life. These rituals fostered a sense of connection between humans, nature, and the unborn or newly born, reinforcing communal bonds and shared responsibility. Each protective measure, whether practical or symbolic, created a layered safety net around the child, ensuring that no single moment of oversight could lead to disaster. Moreover, these ancestral practices instilled an early awareness in caregivers of the delicate interplay between life and environment. They were constantly attuned to the rhythms of nature and the subtle cues that signaled danger or opportunity. In this sense, rituals were not merely ceremonial, they were functional, educational, and deeply interwoven with survival strategies. By observing and participating in these practices, younger members of the tribe absorbed knowledge about human vulnerability and resilience. They learned to predict, respond, and anticipate, developing a heightened sensitivity that was crucial for navigating the world. The consistency and repetition of these rituals created a rhythm in daily life, a structure that allowed the community to function effectively despite constant threats. This balance of observation, action, and symbolic understanding transformed ordinary routines into lifelines, connecting generations through shared knowledge and safeguarding the future of the most vulnerable. It is within this intricate web of practical ritual, spiritual attentiveness, and communal care that the roots of human survival ingenuity become most visible, revealing a sophisticated understanding of life that went far beyond instinct alone. As humans continued to navigate the uncertainties of the Paleolithic world, they began to notice patterns that were not immediately visible, subtle messages hidden in the rhythm of life, and the behavior of the world around them. These were signals that demanded interpretation. Tiny changes in the wind, the unusual stillness of animals, or the shifting position of clouds could all indicate danger or opportunity. Our ancestors developed a form of communication with this invisible world. An intuition honed over countless generations, which guided their decisions in ways that were both practical and spiritual. This communication was not literal. It was a sophisticated awareness, an ability to read and act upon information that many might overlook today. They created rituals, symbols, and careful observations that acted as a bridge between the seen and unseen, between action and consequence. When it came to newborns, these signals were critical. A slight tremor in the earth could warn of approaching predators. A sudden silence in the forest could indicate nearby danger. Even the smallest deviation from a routine could mean the difference between safety and calamity. By learning to recognize and respect these invisible messages, caregivers could anticipate risks and respond in ways that safeguarded their most vulnerable. Knowledge was shared within the community through demonstrations, oral storytelling, and symbolic actions, teaching each member how to interpret and respond to the unseen. This network of understanding created a collective vigilance that surrounded the infants, ensuring constant protection. It was a world in which awareness and intuition were as vital as strength or speed, and where the ability to perceive hidden signals became a form of survival intelligence. The interplay between observation, interpretation, and timely action became a delicate art, refined over generations, that ensured the continuation of life amidst the unpredictability of the natural world. As we reflect on these ancestral strategies, it becomes evident that their ingenuity extended beyond mere instinct. It was a conscious, learned skill, a dialogue with the forces around them that demanded attention, respect, and wisdom. Now think about how subtle signals in your own life might guide you. What if paying attention to the unseen could prevent danger or reveal opportunity? I want to hear your thoughts. Leave a comment sharing a moment when intuition or subtle signs shaped a decision in your life. Did you notice a warning or an insight that changed your path? Engage with the story of our past by connecting it to your own experiences. And let's explore together how these ancestral messages continue to resonate today. In the midst of these complex survival strategies, our ancestors relied heavily on tools and structures designed specifically to protect the most fragile members of the group, the newborns. Every object, every constructed space served a purpose beyond mere utility. They were extensions of human insight, carefully engineered to reduce risk and maximize safety. Cradles, beds made from natural materials, and shelters positioned strategically within the environment created layers of protection, shielding infants from predators, harsh weather, and accidental harm. The materials chosen, soft furs, flexible branches, and insulating plant fibers, demonstrated an acute understanding of comfort, warmth, and resilience. Placement was equally important. Infants were often kept in areas where adults could maintain constant vigilance, yet where the child would not interfere with daily activities or be exposed to sudden hazards. Beyond physical protection, some tools and structures carried symbolic significance. Certain patterns, carvings, or placements were believed to channel protective energies or invoke ancestral guidance, blending practicality with spiritual reassurance. This integration of functional design and symbolic meaning was not coincidental. It reflected a world view in which the tangible and intangible were intertwined. The careful arrangement of living spaces, the deliberate selection of building materials, and the precise timing of daily routines were all part of a sophisticated approach to safeguarding life. Communities developed methods to distribute responsibility, ensuring that each infant had multiple caregivers and that the protection network never faltered. This collective attentiveness allowed parents and community members to anticipate threats and respond swiftly, reinforcing the survival of the youngest and most vulnerable. Over time, these practices became ingrained habits, refined with every generation, and deeply embedded in cultural knowledge. They reflected not just instinctive behavior but intentional design, foresight, and an appreciation for the delicate balance between risk and safety. By observing and replicating these strategies, communities could systematically reduce the dangers that infants faced, turning ordinary shelters and tools into lifelines. The ingenuity embedded in these protective measures highlights a profound connection between human creativity, environmental awareness, and the instinct to preserve life. It shows that even in an era without modern technology, humans developed sophisticated systems to ensure that the cycle of life could continue, protecting the youngest in ways that were both practical and deeply meaningful. Each innovation, each carefully considered arrangement, reinforced the understanding that survival depended on foresight, collective effort, and the seamless integration of knowledge, observation, and action. Equally crucial to survival was the role of the community and the intricate web of cooperation that bound early humans together. Life in the Paleolithic era was never a solitary endeavor. Survival depended on collective vigilance, shared responsibilities, and the transmission of knowledge from one generation to the next. Newborns were at the center of this cooperative network, and their well-being relied not only on the immediate parents, but on the attentiveness of siblings, relatives, and other members of the group. Each individual played a part in maintaining the delicate balance of care. While parents provided direct feeding, warmth, and protection, others contributed by keeping watch, gathering resources, preparing safe spaces, or teaching essential survival skills. This distributed system of care created redundancy, ensuring that the youngest could thrive even if one caregiver was temporarily unavailable. Beyond physical protection, the community served as a repository of collective wisdom, where observations about the environment, interpretations of subtle signs, and ancestral teachings were shared, reinforced, and refined. Learning was not confined to formal instruction. It was embedded in daily interactions, storytelling, and the modeling of careful attention to both human and natural signals. This social cohesion cultivated empathy, attentiveness, and an instinctive understanding of the needs of others, especially the most vulnerable. Moreover, the emotional bonds within these groups strengthened adherence to safety practices, as each member understood that failure to act or heed a warning could have consequences for the entire community. Such interconnectedness allowed early humans to extend the reach of their care, creating a protective buffer that amplified individual vigilance. Cooperation also fostered innovation, as shared experiences led to improvements in shelters, tools, and childcare strategies. Rituals, patterns of behavior, and collective responses to danger became codified within the group, forming a living framework of knowledge that guided decisions and reinforced survival strategies. Through this complex interplay of social structure, cooperation, and knowledge sharing, early humans were able to navigate the perils of their environment more effectively than any individual could alone. The survival of infants was not just a product of instinct or luck. It was the outcome of an intelligent, coordinated system of care that leveraged the strengths, observations, and wisdom of the entire community. It is within this delicate balance of social cooperation, communal attentiveness, and shared responsibility that we begin to see the roots of human ingenuity, the first seeds of organized care that allowed generations to flourish against the odds. As generations passed, the lessons learned from survival, observation, and care began to solidify into a legacy, an ancestral memory that guided communities through the uncertainties of life. This legacy was not written in books, nor carved into stone, but encoded in the rhythms of daily practice, the repetition of protective rituals, and the stories that were shared around the fire. Every choice made to safeguard a newborn carried with it the weight of accumulated wisdom, the distilled experience of countless caregivers who had faced dangers, made mistakes, and found solutions. Spirituality and ritual played a central role in this legacy. Acts that might seem symbolic to modern eyes were, in fact, deeply practical, guiding behavior, enhancing attentiveness, and embedding protective strategies into the fabric of communal life. From the timing of movements within the shelter to the use of specific objects for protection, each tradition served as a reinforcement of knowledge, critical for survival. Caregivers learned to interpret subtle cues, the smallest shift in an infant's breathing, the faintest cry, the slightest movement that signaled discomfort or danger, and respond with precision and intention. These learned patterns became second nature, an intricate choreography of care that ensured the safety and thriving of the youngest. The stories passed from elders to youth were more than entertainment. They were manuals of survival, teaching lessons about the natural world, animal behavior, and the hidden rhythms of the environment. Through these narratives, children absorbed an understanding of cause and effect, of risk and protection, and of the delicate balance between human action and natural forces. As these teachings accumulated, they formed a spiritual and practical map, guiding each new generation in ways that were simultaneously concrete and symbolic. Today, when we reflect on the ingenuity of our ancestors, it is clear that this legacy was one of adaptability, insight, and careful attention to the unseen forces that shaped life. It was a wisdom that transcended time, offering lessons not only for survival, but for understanding the intricate connections between human beings, their environment, and the fragile new lives they nurtured. The influence of nature and the environment on early human life cannot be overstated. Every season brought new challenges, and the survival of newborns depended on the keen ability of caregivers to adapt to these changes. Shifts in temperature, unpredictable storms, and the migration patterns of animals all played a crucial role in shaping daily routines and protective measures. Early humans developed an intimate understanding of these cycles, observing and anticipating the environment with a precision born of necessity. They knew when certain plants would provide shelter, which animal behaviors indicated nearby predators, and how the patterns of the stars could guide navigation and timing. This environmental awareness was deeply integrated into the upbringing of infants, as caregivers adjusted feeding, sleeping arrangements, and protective measures according to the signals they read from the world around them. Even subtle changes, a sudden drop in temperature, the unexpected quiet of a usually noisy forest, were interpreted as warnings, prompting immediate adaptations in how infants were cared for. Beyond immediate physical protection, the environment influenced the spiritual and symbolic practices that permeated daily life. Certain natural objects, formations, or occurrences were believed to hold protective power, and infants were often positioned or wrapped in ways that aligned with these beliefs. This blending of practical observation with spiritual awareness reinforced a culture of attentiveness, teaching early humans to read the world carefully and act with foresight. Communities cultivated a deep respect for the natural forces surrounding them, understanding that every aspect of the environment carried potential risks or benefits. Children who grew up in this context learned early to notice, interpret, and respond to subtle signals, a skill that became essential for the survival of the entire group. Through this constant interaction with nature, humans developed a sophisticated toolkit of strategies, rituals, and adaptive behaviors that allowed them to thrive despite the unpredictability of their surroundings. The lessons learned from these environmental interactions were transmitted across generations, forming a body of knowledge that combined observation, intuition, and action. It was this intimate relationship with the natural world that shaped not only survival strategies but also the very structure of early communities, ensuring that every decision, from where to place a newborn in a shelter to how to respond to the faintest environmental cue, was informed by a profound understanding of the forces at play. In this way, the natural environment became both teacher and protector, embedding a rhythm of attentiveness and responsiveness that would define human care practices for generations to come. Stories of survival and sacrifice punctuated the lives of early human communities, offering both lessons and inspiration that shaped the way caregivers approached the care of newborns. These stories were not merely anecdotal. They were critical records of what worked and what failed, a living archive of strategies honed through trial, error, and the relentless pursuit of preservation. A child saved from a predator by the alertness of a watchful sibling became a tale repeated around the fire, emphasizing the importance of vigilance, attentiveness, and cooperation. Conversely, a tragedy resulting from a missed sign or a lapse in care served as a stark warning, embedding the consequences into communal memory and ensuring that the lesson would inform future actions. These narratives were rich in detail, describing the smallest gestures, a careful shift of a sleeping infant, the placement of protective barriers, the timing of food preparation, that made the difference between life and death. Beyond practical instruction, the stories carried symbolic weight, reinforcing social bonds and shared responsibility. Infants were not seen as isolated dependents, but as central figures whose survival required the coordinated effort of the entire group. Each story illuminated the interplay between individual initiative and collective vigilance, showing how decisions and actions, however small, contributed to the resilience of the community. Through these tales, knowledge of environmental cues, protective practices, and spiritual or symbolic rituals was woven into the consciousness of every member, creating an unbroken chain of wisdom that connected generations. The repetition and transmission of these stories also cultivated imagination, critical thinking, and the ability to anticipate potential dangers. Children learned to extrapolate from past experiences, developing a sense of cause and effect that enhanced their ability to respond effectively to new challenges. Over time, the cumulative impact of these narratives became profound, shaping not only immediate survival strategies, but also the cultural identity of the group. They reinforced the understanding that survival was a shared responsibility, a complex dance of observation, intuition, and action, where every member's contribution mattered. In reflecting on these stories, it becomes clear that the legacy of early humans was not only in the lives they saved, but in the knowledge, practices, and cultural memory they created. Each narrative, each example of care or sacrifice, served as a reminder that the preservation of life was both a practical and moral endeavor, one that required attentiveness, courage, and a deep respect for the fragile beginnings of human existence. As we reach the culmination of these ancestral teachings, it becomes evident that the wisdom of early humans holds lessons that resonate even today. Their practices, rooted in careful observation, communal care, and subtle interpretation of the environment, reveal a level of insight and intentionality that ensured the survival of the most vulnerable. These strategies were not static. They evolved as humans learned to read the world more accurately, to anticipate risks, and to create systems of protection that were both practical and deeply meaningful. The care of newborns became a reflection of the community's collective intelligence, a demonstration of how attentiveness, empathy, and cooperation could transform the harshest environment into a space where life could flourish. Modern life may seem distant from these ancient challenges, yet the principles remain relevant. Paying attention to subtle cues, fostering collaboration, and valuing the wisdom passed down through generations can profoundly impact our decisions and the well-being of those we care for. The legacy of our ancestors reminds us that every action matters, that knowledge accumulated over time can guide us through uncertainty, and that protection, nurturing, and foresight are timeless virtues. If you have followed this journey with me until now, you have witnessed how intricately life was preserved through awareness, ritual, and community. I encourage you to leave a comment indicating that you stayed with this exploration of the past, perhaps saying, "I'm with you until the end," or "This message was for me," so we can see who has engaged fully with these insights. If this story has resonated with you, don't forget to hit the like button and make sure you are subscribed to continue uncovering these hidden connections between our past and present. There is a wealth of knowledge waiting in the next video, exploring themes that complement what we've discovered today. You can click and continue this journey, seeing how ancestral wisdom continues to inform our understanding of life, survival, and the subtle guidance that shapes every human experience. Through these lessons, the thread connecting past, present, and future becomes clear, reminding us that the messages of our ancestors were never lost. They live within the practices, awareness, and care that we continue to carry forward.